let me ask you your opinion on this. Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary show. They did one thing. They did a sketch where Tom Hanks puts on a MAGA hat, so he's a Trumper, and then Keenan comes over to shake his hand, and he won't shake his hand.
Yeah.
And I said this on Fareed's show the other day. I found that so old. You know, I didn't vote for him. I get all the bad things about that administration, but if you think they don't shake black people's hands, it's just you're wrong. That's not who they are. Matt Gaetz shakes black people's hands. You know, Kid Rock will shake your hand. It's just not helpful to like think that half the country that's where they are. That's your
still, you're a comedian. You know, it's part of its comedy.
I understand.
But let's be honest. There's a huge faction of the MAGA movement that's really fucking racist.
I wouldn't say huge. No, I'd say partly.
I would say huge.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have different perspectives.
I would say huge, and even if they're not, you have to overlook a lot of that in order to support Donald Trump, which I think is maybe even more egregious than just saying I'm a racist.
So what do you think is the worst? I mean, to me, the back in, was it 89 with the Central Park 5?
Yeah.
That was, to me, like the most egregious thing because it just seems so like, and then, of course, the Obama birth certificate, which...
You mean with Donald Trump?
With Trump.
What's the most egregious?
Yeah, I mean, he sued me, Trump did.
For the orangutan thing.
Yes, because I was making fun of that because that was very racist. But also, like, he seemed to be just... I mean, there was something very animating about his like, just laser-focused drive about the Central Park 5 thing. That seemed to, you could feel the racism in there.
What was the payoff? Why was he there? He wasn't running for office.
It was, right. Yeah. It just seemed like there's something in him. And of course, we know his father was a virulent racist.
Yeah.
You know, and he grew up in a different time and he's almost 80. And yes, I understand that element to it. But, you know, to ascribe to all the people who voted for him, which is a majority of the country.
I didn't say all the people.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not a majority. It's plurality.
Well, whatever it is, he won.
Yeah.
It's at least half the country. I mean, to ascribe his worst traits to all of them.
I don't think it's half the country, but go on.
Well,
what
ascribe
his worst traits to whatever.
How do you win an election?
Well,
and the popular
first it's
vote.
the electorate. Not everybody votes, and I don't think I think most of the people in America don't vote, and I don't think it's half the country. So what I'm saying is, I don't think half the country is racist, and I don't think all of MAGA is racist. But I do think that there's a huge element in the MAGA party that is racist, whether they are conscious of it or not. Some of them are not, and if they are not, they have had to overlook a lot of racism and a lot of bigotry. And if you do that and you say, I'm okay with this, I think that makes you worse than someone who just says, hey, I'm a racist, and they tell you.
But some of it is just a backlash to what they think was going too far, like all these corporations now that have dropped DEI. Now, in the government, they did it because he ordered...
Backlash for what?
For too much DEI.
I don't think those people understand what DEI is. DEI is not the hiring of black people who are not qualified or
it can
people
be.
Who are... No. That's not what it's about.
It can have that result.
But anything can be. Yes, of course it could have that result, but there's no evidence that it does have that result.
And I don't know about that.
Okay, so then what is your evidence? There's no evidence that there is that result. If you can show me the evidence, then okay. Then I will agree with you.
Well, I'm not going to name any names.
Okay, but diversity, equity, inclusion, first of all, is not, maybe they're talking about affirmative action, which is a whole different thing, which is about making sure you hired, a certain number of people that are this, that, and that. But diversity, equity, and inclusion is about making sure that the pool of candidates is larger. So if you are fishing, rather than fishing in a swimming pool, maybe you're in a pond. Rather than fishing in a pond, you're in a lake. Or maybe you're in a lake instead of a river. Or in a river, you're in the ocean. So you're just trying to find different people, and you're trying to increase the number of options of qualified people that you can hire. It's not about hiring people who...
You can't do that. That happens naturally. The pool is created by the free market itself, which is called people going and seeking those opportunities. If the opportunities already exist, how is you as the government going to expand the pool? That's what he's saying. It's basically expand the pool to include more people and make it more diverse. Well, you can't do that. How are you going to force people to do that? Well, what he's failing to say is that we're going to force you to pick those people that are in this pool that are minority. That's what they're not explaining here. He's saying, oh, well, just expand the pool to be larger. You can't do that. Nobody can do that. Only people seeking opportunity, and those are the only people that are in the pool. So if they don't seek for that opportunity, they're not in the pool. I mean, these people, it doesn't make any sense.
It's not about hiring people who are not qualified and who are just black. The biggest recipient of DEI is white women, and also veterans because of veterans, and also people who are disabled people. It's just about making sure that disabled people have a ramp somewhere at work so that they get to work and they can
but
whatever.
equity is the word, not equality. That it was a change that people noticed. Equality was everybody gets an equal shot. Equity is like, no, it's basically quotas. Equity is we're going.
It's quotas. I don't think that America's never been about everybody getting an equal shot.
No, it certainly hasn't been. No one's contesting that.
No.
But that's what the idea, the old school liberal idea was, we need to strive for equality. That changed to equity. This is what some people are against, and reasonable people can disagree on it without being racist. Having said that, there are of course racists in this country. There always will be, just like there will always be criminals.
I agree, but I think the people who are disagreeing about it, they need to understand exactly what it is. I think people who disagree may not understand what it is. Now, I have an issue with DEI because I think when you make it a religion, it's not, then you end up with the Al Frankens of the world of people who get canceled and they use the DEI stuff to get rid of people. But I think you have to understand what the real definition is and that people have sort of co-opted it. And I think if you believe, as in the definition that the MAGA Trump administration, that they're saying what DEI is, that is a racist definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
What is it? What is it?
They're saying that this is because they're hiring people, women, people of color, minorities who are not qualified. And that's not what is happening.
So you're saying no person of color or woman who was not qualified was ever hired for any job?
I'm sorry. Well, no. I'm not saying that.
Oh, but
But
it seems like that would have to be the logical conclusion.
But that would be saying that no white people were ever unqualified.
And we know lots of them have.
Yeah. And so when most of the people who are, they talk about the airplanes in the airplane industry, most of the pilots and the people who are white. Most of the doctors in the country where they say DEI, we don't want it. Most of the doctors are white. And so all of those malpractice suits are against mostly white doctors. Most of the planes that fall out of the sky are,
of course,
piloted by white.
It's a majority white country. 9 times out of 10, everything is going to be majority white in a majority white country.
Pilots.
Yes.
And so then what is your issue then with diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I don't have one. The question.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm talking about
okay.
understood you. What is your issue then if there is no evidence that by hiring a bigger pool of people?
No, I think they think I think there is evidence. There are places. Okay, I will give you an example because we had fires here recently. I mentioned it on my show, so something new I'm saying. But our fire chief was a lesbian, and I said on my show, do I think a lesbian can do that job? Of course I do. Right. But I think what they did was said, okay, we want to hire a lesbian first, so we're going to hire the best person among lesbians, as opposed to we're going to hire the best person. That kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but to pretend that kind of thing hasn't been happening in this country.
I don't disagree with you on that.
Is disingenuous.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I shouldn't say I don't disagree with you. I understand what you're saying. But that one example, as opposed to the millions of examples of people who are not diverse, as they say, who have been hired and unqualified, I think that's apples, that's like this and that.
But again, I'm answering to you why people vote for Trump, who Because if it's you, by the way,
No, you're right. I
if
understand
it's
that.
you, if you think you lost out on something, you're going to be bitter about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just stop it right there. This was a 2-hour podcast. I don't know about you guys, but I can't sit there and listen to Don Lemon for 2 hours cry victim the whole time. But what Bill was saying was 100% correct, and Don Lemon was being very disingenuous. People are not complaining that black people are being hired through DEI. We're complaining that there's racial quotas through DEI, and that can cause somebody that is not as qualified. Yeah, they could be qualified, but they probably weren't as qualified as their counterpart, but the other person wasn't picked because they didn't meet the racial quota that they were trying to meet. That's what we're talking about. And you listen here when these people talk, every single time that somebody disagrees with them, what they resort to is, oh, they just don't understand. Oh, MAGA, they're just too stupid. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. No, we know what we're talking about. We understand clearly. We're very smart. And that's the reason that we won these elections. We know exactly what's going on. But these leftists always try to pretend as if they're smartest one in the room and that we're too dumb to understand what their policies are and the consequences of their policies. And also, you notice in the beginning part of this podcast, when Bill brought up Tom Hanks, you heard Don Lemon justify the joke that Tom Hanks made by saying, well, it's just comedy. I mean, it's just comedy. You should know, Bill. You're a comedian, right? It's just comedy. Don't feel too bad about it. But when Dave Chappelle was making fun of the LGBTQ squad, I mean, these people were they try to cancel the man, right? Comedy was offensive nowadays. So it's okay for Tom Hanks to make fun of MAGA and call MAGA racist, but when somebody is making fun of the left, then all of a sudden, like they try to label Dave as transphobe, homophobe, racist, misogynist, all these nonsense, right? These people are very, very hypocritical, and their double standards are, they're just comical. But Don Lemon, people like Don Lemon will never, ever, ever, I'm telling you this right now, until the day Don Lemon dies, will never come out and say that racism is not a problem in this country. He will never do that. People like him rely on racism as their grift. I mean, this guy, what is he now? A podcaster like I am. This guy's making content on YouTube, on TikTok. He went from from CNN to being a content creator, doing street interviews, right? And he's still pushing the same narrative that he was pushing on CNN. That shows you that he's never going to change. He's never going to learn his lesson. So until the day he dies, Don Lemon is going to always complain about racism. That is the only thing that he has left that is helping him continue his grift and continue his paychecks. That's it. That's the only thing. That's why none of these people, Al Sharpton, all of these big-ass race hustlers will never come out and admit that racism is not a problem in this country, because that's how they get paid. That's what they rely on their employment. This is hilarious. A washed up so-called journalist. I mean, come on, Bill. You're stooping low here for a guest. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Let's talk about this video in the comment section about what they're talking about out there. And of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.